Hello everybody, my name is Laura and you're watching the Beanbird 2 channel where we talk about the goodness of God and testimonies. And today I want to share about something that happened to me when I was, it would have been high school. So my family was kind of a troubled family. We had a lot of domestic issues, and my mom was abusive, verbally, physically, but my dad wasn't really aware of what was going on in the house. And so he worked and just lived what was like a normal life to him, not knowing what was going on in the house. And so when it came to Sundays, we all went to church, but we took separate cars. My dad was a deacon, and so he would have to get there early, and he always wanted to have breakfast. So he would go out to Big Boy in the morning and have some breakfast, and then he would get to the church early. And then meanwhile, my mom would take us kids much later, and we usually arrived late, to be honest. And because of what was going on in the house, my mom would always tell us when we're going into the church, we're going to come in and we're going to sit down in the back. And then when they play the last song, I want everybody to get up and leave the church. And she would tell us not to talk to anybody. She'd be like, if anybody says anything to you, just, say hi, put your head down, and get out the door. And she would kind of give us a speech every time it was time to go to church. And back then I thought it was kind of strange, and I wanted to be at church more. I wanted to be there on time. I wanted to talk to people. I remember feeling like I wanted to talk to people, but that just wasn't the way that it was to go. But now, when I look back, I can see the reason she wanted to do that was probably because she was trying to keep everything that was going on at home a secret. But anyway, I loved church. I loved going from the time as soon as I could remember going. And our church had Sunday school, and all the kids would go to Sunday school, but I wasn't allowed to go to Sunday school because, like I said, we always came late. Well, I had this one family once I was in high school, and they kept inviting me to Sunday school. And my mom didn't want any part of it. And so they kept inviting me and kept inviting me, and I was running out of reasons to say why I couldn't go. And so I was like, well, my mom won't let me go. And so they just tried to keep coming up with ways to cancel my no. And I appreciate that now. And that's why I'm mentioning this testimony, is because of how their invite process worked for me. So they're like, well, what would it take for you to go? And I asked my mom, I'm like, Mom, I really want to go to Sunday school. And she's like, well, we can't go because we would have to get there early, and we can't get there early, so you can't go. And it was just like, all right, I guess I'm getting nowhere with that. So I would tell them, my mom can't get there early. Why not? She just says we can't. So my mom thought that she could put the kibosh on the whole thing when she said, fine, you can go to Sunday school, but you have to get your own ride. And so the next time they invited me, I said, well, my mom said I could go, but I'd have to get my own ride. And they're like, we'll take you. And I was like, really? I mean, that's totally out of your way. And, they would have to leave the house early, swing by my house, pick me up, and take me. And they're like, that's fine. We wouldn't mind it at all. And I thought, why would they do that for me? Why would they offer that? Like, why would they want to inconvenience themselves? Why would they invite me? Like, I mean, it's not like I was an unchurched person. They just really wanted to see me in Sunday school. And so I told my mom, I'm like, well, I got a ride, and they offered to pick me up on Sunday morning. And I don't think my mom was expecting that they would take it that far. And she already knew that she had told me, hey, if you can get a ride, then you can go. So she was like, all right, I guess you can go. And that's how I started going to Sunday school. And then again, when I was it was a couple years later, I was like upper high school time frame, I kept getting invites to youth group, same church, but youth group. And same story, same song. My mom was like, no, you can't go. And I kept trying to deflect with people that I couldn't go. And finally, I had somebody say, well, if I give you a ride, can you go? And so I asked my mom, a different person, a different family, and I said, Mom, they're willing to give me a ride to youth group. And she was like, all right, as long as she didn't have to be a part of it, she was fine with it. So they took me to youth group, and these two different families gave me rides to church, for Sunday school and then also for youth group until I was able to drive and be an adult myself. And I think that sometimes maybe people overlook, or maybe people are afraid to offer people rides, thinking like, oh, well, if they wanted to go, then they would, ask me or something. But I really appreciated them pursuing me and like trying to, pull me out and be like, hey, come to Sunday school, come to youth group. And I think that if you can invite somebody, I think a lot of times when we invite people, we expect rejection, right? We're looking for that somebody say, no, I don't want to go, But I think there's a lot of people where we can be surprised that they say yes. And our church was doing this evangelism push last year, and they wanted us to go out and in our neighborhood and, talk to people. They said don't knock door to door. They were like, just walk through your neighborhood, and if you see somebody outside, whether they're cutting their grass or working in their yard or walking out of their car, and you see them and you have an opportunity to talk to them, take those little opportunities and just say, hey, we're just walking through the neighborhood, a beautiful day, and just, casually invite them to church. And this idea terrified me. I was like, I don't want to start a conversation with somebody. They're going to be like, I don't want to talk to you, and it's going to be weird, and I'm going to get rejected. And I had all these concerns in my mind. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to walk around the block. And I just prayed that, Lord, will you bring people out of their house that you want me to interact with on this around the block tour? And I thought that, God would put something on their heart, and maybe they would get out of their house and I would be able to talk to them. So we start doing this walk, and I have my kids with me, and we are walking around the block, and there's a lady out of her house in the driveway. And so I talked to her, some small talk, and I said, our church isn't too far from here. If you'd ever like to come, we'd love to have you. It's really great. It's changed my life, and I feel like our kids are really excited to be a part of it, and you will probably love it too. And later, I was surprised when she texted me, and she said, I just want to let you know that when you invited me to church, I felt so touched. She's like, you know what? She's an adult woman, and she said, I have never had somebody invite me to church before. And I was kind of blown away by that. I was like, really? Like, is that possible that you can, go your whole life and nobody invited you to church before? And I'm sharing this to give perspective that how other people might perceive your invitation, that it's welcomed more than you might even realize. And the same person, later on, I had this really cool thing happen. I was shopping at Aldi, and while I was there, I thought, you know what, I'm going to get some ingredients for chicken noodle soup. It's not something I make very often, but I went ahead and picked up things that I would need to make soup. I got home and I started making the chicken noodle soup. And then I got a text message from that same lady, and she said, hey, I hate to bother you, but I have been super sick with COVID, and I don't really have anybody who's able to take care of me. And she said, all I'm craving right now is chicken noodle soup. She said, do you think you could get me some chicken noodle soup and just leave it on my porch? And I was literally making it on the stove when she texted. And so I said, yeah, absolutely. So I packaged up all the soup into like little Tupperware containers, and I just walked her around the block and left it on her porch and rang the doorbell. And she thanked me, and she, was so thankful. But then also the way that the Lord worked that out is she was like, what was the name of that church again? And I told her how it worked out. I said, you're not going to believe this, but I was at the store and I felt like the Lord put on my heart that I needed to make chicken noodle soup today. And as I was making it, your text message came through. And God used that to kind of back up my invitation to her. And I think that created more interest in her heart for like, wait a minute, like, what is it you believe again? where do you go? What church is this? And I love how the Holy Spirit wants to partner with us, and he wants to engage in, like, when we get out there and we start saying, Lord, use my mouth. Lord, use my eyes. Lord, lead somebody to me. Have someone come out of their house while I'm walking by, and that's the person I'll approach. He will start to bring these opportunities into your life, and you will start hearing from him. And I do want to say too, I did not hear the audible voice of God say, make chicken noodle soup. I did not hear that. But I just felt this feeling like, man, I really feel like I should make chicken noodle soup today. And I just did that. And I feel like the more that I've aligned myself to living a godly life, the more that I follow these inclinations, the more they end up in the big picture being part of God's plan that he's leading me through. And that's really cool. And it's not an emotion. We can't trust our emotions. We can't rely on our emotions. But I find that a lot of times if I'm thinking something, I'm like, is that my thought or God's thoughts? But the closer I walk with the Lord, the more it all just kind of merges together and works together in some amazing way. So I just want to put that out there to, maybe if there's somebody that you're thinking about inviting, go ahead and invite them. Find out, their why and like why they can't go, or is there an objection that you can overcome? See who the Lord can bring into your path when you're just walking in your neighborhood or doing your routine grocery runs. So I just want to share those testimonies, and I am so thankful that people intervened in my life to give me rides. And when possible, I try to pay it forward to the people that I meet around me, and remember that some people don't have rides, and some people have vision problems and they can't drive, or older people, they might not be able to drive. These are good people to remember when we're going to church and be like, hey, do you need a ride to church? Maybe they're sick, or maybe they have some sort of disability. And when we think about them, it touches their heart. So pray to God who he wants to bring into your life that you can help today. Thank you.